Okay. So as we move to that second area, the skill sets, we're going to begin looking at what are the foundational pieces that we need to stay connected. The first, and everybody would say this, it would show up on any marriage assessment for most couples, the conflict resolution, communication, sex, in-laws, money. Those would be the big ideas that people tend to struggle with feeling like it's going well in. So the skill sets we're going to start looking at are these ideas of communication, speaking, listening, expressing vulnerability, beginning to be known. So we always go back to know, be known, care, and act. Okay, that's our definition. Target, connection, intimacy, oneness, whatever word you're more comfortable with. By the way, as you teach this, when you say intimacy, most people think of sex. That's why I don't use it very much. Okay, it's moved more towards that oneness or that connection. Intimacy can be experienced without any sexual connotation, but in our culture, that seems to be where everybody's head goes. So you're here snickering, because that's where and same thing with affection, but for sure that's where it goes. So communication, speaking, listening, and expressing vulnerability, knowing, being known, caring, and acting. This connecting, the knowing, the caring, and then investing with those actions. So we're going to look at the skill sets. That there's 5 core things we teach, really 3 we try to get through with every couple. And if we have the time or the framework to go through 2 more skills, that's where we'll go. But the piece that's the most foundational, that leads to the longest engagement, is this idea. And there's a version of this in the back of a new version of this in the skills notebook that actually kind of resides in knowing, being known, caring, and acting in that language to reinforce it. So accepting God's Genesis mandate. This is what we encourage in the very first time we get together with folks, is to consider, if you really feel like this is a conviction that God's desire for you as a couple would be to pursue oneness, that you would consider setting a time and a space and setting up a small ceremony that says, I am committed to this. I promise this. And there's just a few concepts. To accept each other and commit to that process of oneness. Accept the idea that you are God's prescribed method for the primary care of your mate. Accept that role and make that promise one to another. Some have done it in really fun, like renewing their vows ways. Cindy and I were completely unromantic, did it in a mall in Kansas, sitting in our car out in the parking lot. So it wasn't particularly romantic, but it stuck because we meant it and we spoke it, and it engages. Here's the deal, guys. This is I want to give every couple the chance to make a huge shift to go from, I'm walking down this road where we're operating and this is our paradigms, this is our patterns, and I want to show them a different gate, open the door, let them take a step, and then commit to going down that road. If couples do not, in some form, commit to this process one to another, if they don't commit to that, many will come back through in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, going, oh yeah, I seem to remember something about it. Has almost no impact. Those couples who make this promise, it can and often does completely reshape the way they operate as a couple. It completely changes things, because a holy vow is a really good thing. It's a tool the Lord gives us to tie our heart up in something and to commit to something. Second foundational piece, and we're gonna stop here with this last concept, as Nathan was mentioning. Cindy and I will be creating some modeling videos. We probably won't do that live in this context. We're trying to create 2 or 3 examples each of those primary communication skills to post, and we will I'll be, over the next few weeks, we're going to start working through the skills, and we may or may not have the modeling videos ready for that. but we will. I'll teach how we teach couples to do it. The Romans 12:15, we'll do that probably next week. But I also want to lay this foundation and why I think it's so significant. If we were to be in most Christian community, whether it's a small group or whatever it might be, and we asked someone, hey, do you have a hard thing or a happy thing to share something, a celebration? What did God do this week in the celebration? In most context, Christians will rarely look at the person. They will rarely let their heart get excited with them as they're sharing this testimony, and almost no one will verbally affirm that. And even it's so critical. T4T has it as a part of care that when you come together, you want to make these connections. The 4-field training, we have the share a hard thing and a celebration from the last week. And as I've sat with guys that have been highly trained in that, the expectation, again, I'm not condemning. This is not to push down anything. It's just to say, are we doing it well? Are we doing what God asks us to do? And I would sit and say, okay, so someone shares a hard story. What do you do? What do you tell them? And they would go, well, I try to encourage them, remind them what's true. And I go, okay, can we gently reconsider? If someone shares something hard with you, what is the appropriate thing? What is the biblical idea that God would want us to step into? It's not that encouragement is bad. It just may not be the right thing at that moment. Is there a first step that will lead to care and connection? And I believe that is the truth found in Romans 12:15. So when you think about Romans 12, it is the relational, attitudinal complement to 1 Corinthians 12. 1 Corinthians 12 is more systematic. Many of the ideas are very similar. You can see some of the same concepts, but the emphasis in Romans 12 overall is this picture of connection and care and affection and how we relate. The emphasis is not on our gift or how we fit in the system. It's how we care for each other, how we have affection for each other. Right in there is this verse: rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. And I would say, without doubt, this is the least obeyed command, at least in the West, in the entire New Testament, because we don't see it as a command. And if we did, we would say, weep with those who weep or comfort those who mourn, and we would apply the wrong therapy. We would tend to, and I've done it, so I'm not condemning anyone else. I've done it many times. I've tried to talk someone out of their pain. Say, it'll be okay. We're just not very good at it. This verse is what began Cindy and I's journey on all of these handles. We were at a couples conference, and probably 100, maybe 100 couples, maybe 150 couples. I don't know. It was a pretty big room. Craig and Lee Corey were up. They've been trained at Intimate Life with Dr. Ferguson. And they came up and they walked us through the Paradise exercise, which we did in that first webinar we did. And then he walked us through this exercise. And Cindy and I shared some stories. We had a great time. We were crying and connecting, and it was just really, really a blessing to us. And as much as I enjoyed connecting with Cindy, there was a deeper moment of conviction where I go, I do not obey this verse. I do not do this. I am sinning. I am disobeying God, because when someone shares something hard with me, I either don't care or I tell them how to fix it. I make no time to bring care or comfort. And from that moment on, I made a little vow. I want to be the guy who people want to tell their good news to, and know that if they have hard things to talk about, that I will stop and care for them. And I want to be that guy. And I've certainly done that imperfectly. I've tried to fake it a few times. It doesn't work, by the way. If you don't actually care, it doesn't actually land. You don't get points for the acting. So allowing your heart to get there. We'll talk more about what that means to do that well. But this is a significant piece. This is the foundational piece of how we start to experience connection. Can we talk through stories and hurts and traumas with another human being. Learning to do that with the Lord is also part of that, dealing with our own stuff. But comfort is God's temporary solution to temporary problem of hurt, loss, sorrow, death, all those things that are negative. We were not designed to experience those things. So somehow he's given us this capacity to meet each other in those hard things. The world calls that empathy, and I think that's a good word. It's a fairly modern application of the word. It is not sympathy. We'll watch a video that kind of explains, at least it's a picture of how maybe some of the differences between empathy and sympathy. But fundamentally, this idea, this comfort, when Jesus did it with Lazarus, when he was quick to care deeply, it's basically feeling with. That's the idea. That's the difference between feeling for can be more of a sympathy. And I can project, I can look at your situation and feel bad for you. Empathy is I feel bad or good with you. I let my heart get shepherded to that place. And this is the foundational piece for that connection. We talked at the beginning. We have the target of connection. We have the roadway, the path of relational need, relational theology, relational understanding. Well, what keeps us going? What gives us the energy? It is our capacity to be able to connect. And for you as couples to make this a real priority, because it will add power to everything you do, and people will be able to perceive your connection. It is palpable. It is tangible when we are connected. That whole idea, by this will all men know, if you have love one for another, but also if you express that oneness, the world will know. People will see it, see that care. And that's historically been true and given us great hope for the power that flows from putting energy into this. We talked about a little bit earlier, that idea of living the great command. Well, when you're connected, it empowers obedience. It empowers people listening to you when you have something they want, which I think everybody wants connection. It creates room for the gospel. So Intimate Encounters, that's an early version of some of the Intimate Life materials. They've got a new version now. Never Alone Church, that's the Great Commandment. And these tools, I think it's just important to know where you can find these as you're thinking about this. The tools that flow from Intimate Life that are important to this process, they give us the relational language and theology. They have excellent relationship resources to pull on. There are some really good, effective training opportunities that we went to and were really, really helpful. And then there are some tools that they have for highly distressed couples. There's a secular, it's not inherently Christian, Center for Relational Care down in Austin, where they do marriage intensives. And plus, they're just great support, great books out there to use to help reinforce this, help educate people. The Prepare Enrich is the other partnership, and that's not going to be included in these webinars. But if as we go through this, if there are people who want to get trained, we may set up a Zoom version for those who are at distance, and a local version for those who are along the Front Range here. I train people even from other churches to help do this, so we might be able to pull together a pretty nice little class for that. So big ideas as we're transitioning from this really high level, God wants oneness. How do we do that? Well, we work through committee. Are we convinced? Is it conviction? Can I promise that to my mate? And then are we willing to begin moving towards this sticky connecting place of empathetic connection? And it really is powerful. And even as you're caring for neighbors and friends, that capacity to practice that emotional oneness, that emotional responding really does open doors. And we could share lots and lots of stories about that. But